Hey guys, welcome back to Rachel's studio, and in this session we're going to do half of the color wheel, but this session is going to be packed with so much more information. In this video I'll cover so many basic watercolor concepts and techniques, including defining primary, secondary, tertiary colors, explanations of cool and warm colors, such as why the same exact color can be called a cool green or a warm blue, the many different ways to mix colors, such as mixing on the paper versus on your palette, or by creating them by glazing pure colors over each other, and much more. So let's jump right in and learn a lot of different concepts just by painting this simple color wheel. I traced this image from my downloadable. If you would like to download this free downloadable, I will put a link in the description so you can download it off of my Patreon page, which I am going to make this tutorial public, and I'm going to make the downloadable available to the general public. So you can go to my Patreon and download this traceable, so it's a lot easier to get on your paper. Thank you guys, by the way, so much for watching this video. And if you would like to support this channel, one great thing that you can do for me is watch this video to the end, because the main thing that the YouTube algorithm looks for is how long did my viewers watch. Be sure to subscribe. I upload new videos every week. And if you want to take your support to my art to the next level, check me out on Patreon, where for just $5 a month you can join and watch over 20 full, several hours length, in-depth tutorials with free downloadable traceables. You get instant access to my library of all those tutorials when you join, and you can even join at a higher level to get art critiques from me. And I myself traced this, and then I'm going to use one of my top tricks for 2020, medical tape, to tape this down. And then I'm going to seal mine with some washi tape. All right, for this watercolor tutorial, I'm only going to use 3 colors. I'm going to use my favorite yellow, which is Holbein Aureolin. Again, if you buy any Aureolin, you might buy a non-light fast color, but the pigment that Holbein uses in their Aureolin is a pigment that is light fast. And then I'm going to use Winsor & Newton French Ultramarine, and I choose this blue because it mixes up the 3 primary colors together to make a darker black than most blues. Like if you try to mix a black with cobalt and yellow and red, you're not going to get a dark black. And here's my red of choice. I think Mgram is the only manufacturer. There might be one other that uses this particular pigment, but I love this red. It's a very good primary red. It mixes nicely with both blue and yellow, so I use it almost exclusively as the only red I use. This is also a great exercise in controlling your paint. And one of the things I think it will also highlight is if you put too much water in a small area, you'll get weird edges, and I'll purposely do that for you guys so you guys can see. But I feel like the easiest way to start painting enclosed areas like this is to get them wet first. So I'm going to get this yellow carefully moistened. I've got a little bit of yellow pigment on my brush, that doesn't matter. Using Holbein Aureolin, and I'm getting water. This is how I paint. A lot of times I'll make a clear puddle of water in the shape of whatever I want it to be, and then I charge it with my pure yellow. And this is Holbein Aureolin. And I'm just going to get it evenly distributed in my color wheel. That is pure yellow. I'm going to go over and make a tertiary color, which is a mix of yellow and orange. So each color is the mix of whatever is beside it, except for, of course, the pure primary colors. Red, blue, and yellow are perfectly pure. They don't need any other colors other than themselves to make their color. But all these other colors, like the tertiary colors, are tertiary because they have equal three parts of three different colors. They have yellow plus orange. That's why it's tertiary. Tertiary meaning 3. Yellow plus orange equals yellow-orange. So let's do that. We'll get a little tiny. Now my naphthol red is really strong. So I'm gonna add quite a bit more yellow back into my mix. Now let's try painting this one on dry paper. I did the charging method for this, so we could try different ways of mixing too, to show you guys all the different ways you can mix watercolor. You can mix watercolor by the charge method, and it mixes on your paper, and also you can pre-mix it in your palette, like I'm pre-mixing it. Okay, so let's do this on dry paper. And in this method, you would have a little bit more water in your brush to make sure that you maintain kind of a bead on these edges so they don't get hard, weird edges. Now let's make pure orange, equal yellow and equal red. Now I'm going to do that a different way. Okay, I'm going to show you another way to mix color, and this is the way I'm going to do this one is put down a glaze of yellow, and then on top of it I'll put a glaze of red, and we'll see how that looks. All right, so I'm going to get some pure yellow. Now this does have a little skosh of red in it, but not much, so it's not really cheating too much. All right, so I'm going to put pure yellow down. This is yet another way you can color mix. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat with watercolor, and so that includes creating mixes of colors. You can mix on the palette, you can mix them by directly painting them onto your watercolor paper. All right, so that's pure yellow. So I'm going to let that dry, and we'll move on and do reddish orange while we're waiting for that to dry. Okay, we could do this one by doing a wet and wet wash of red and orange and mix it directly on the paper instead of in here. So let's do yet another approach to mixing, which is directly on the paper. Let's see how that works out. To do that, I think I want to get this all pre-moistened. And I'm going to charge it. We could do even another technique where we mix it all on dry paper. So there's infinite combinations of how you can paint and how you can apply your paint and how you can work in watercolor. And that's why you can get so many different styles with this one medium, because there's so many different ways to work with it, and you'll find your own style. I tend to like to put down water and then charge the paint into it. So this is going to be a reddish orange. I'm going to start with red. I got a little bit of red. I'm going to swish it around in my brush to get some pure red, and then I'm just going to drop it in there. And be careful with this naphthol red, because it is bright. So let's just put that red in. So that's pure red. Now we're going to charge into it. I'm going to dot the water out of my brush because I don't want too much water in this next brushful, because then I'll get cauliflowers, and that's not the point. And then I'm going to just put some yellows in. I'm going to let them mix. That's a very red orange. I could probably put a little bit more orange, but a little bit more yellow, so I'm going to do that. See, is this dry? This still needs to dry some, so we'll go on and do red while we're waiting for this to dry so we can put our glaze over this orange. Now I'm going to get my pure favorite red. In fact, I was reading they use this pigment a lot in the makeup industry because it makes such a beautiful red. So this edge. Again, I'm painting this onto dry paper. I think this is dry enough. I can paint my red glaze over it now. Let's see if we get a nice orange. And I'm going to water this red down quite a bit because it is so strong. And if I need another glaze of red, I'll do that. But I don't want to overtake this yellow. So let's paint our red over this orange. So this is a glaze. This is what I mean when I tell you guys to put a light glaze of tea consistency watercolor paint over whatever area. A lot of times I say paint a blue glaze over his haunches to push his haunches back in the painting. And this is what I mean. Getting that edge nice. That worked. See how that worked? By a glaze of yellow, let it dry. A glaze of red, let it dry. And then voila, we have orange. So since I have yellow on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and do yellow. Because I've already got yellow on my brush, I'm not going to pre-moisten this area because my favorite brush for doing that is this one and it has yellow in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my yellow down for my yellow green. And for my yellow green, I'm going to mix Holbein Aureolin yellow with my very, very favorite blue, ultramarine blue. And I'm going to just get a little bit of blue on my brush. I'm going to blot my brush because that's too much water. I'm going to get cauliflowers. So I'm making sure I don't have too much water by blotting. Pick up some more yellow in my brush. It's already drying on the edges, so this might look a little whack. All right, I feel like I need more yellow though. So I'm gonna pick up a bunch more yellow. Just keep adding it. This is kind of getting to the cauliflower stage, so it'll be interesting to see if we in fact get some cauliflower, but that's okay. This is just an exercise. This is a great exercise for you guys to learn how to control your paint. I'm gonna totally get all the water out of my brush and then just pick up a little bit of pure Aureolin. I still feel like I need some, this is like cream consistency yellow now because this is so almost dry. I really need cream consistency yellow paint. If you go in to a half dry area of paint with a watery brush, you'll get cauliflowers. So I'm just going to mix cream consistency, very buttery yellow, right into this green. Let's mix the green directly on my palette. So green is a mix of just blue and yellow. So I'll get some blue going here. Lots of blue in my brush there. I'm gonna wring out my brush a little bit so I get all the paint out of my brush, clean it out, get out the extra water, and go in to my Aureolin that's half dry on here. And I'm going to get a little bit more from here. Mix it on my palette. This time I'm mixing my paint on my palette. I think that's about right. What do you guys think? Does that look like a pretty, that looks like a pretty straightforward green. And again, green is just equal parts yellow and green. So that's why it's called a secondary color, because it has 2 equal parts in it. Tertiary color has 3 equal parts. Yellow plus green equals yellow-green. That's 3 equal parts of that. But blue-green, or I'm sorry, green is just, it's a secondary color because it has 2 parts. 1 part yellow plus 1 part blue. So that's why they're called primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. Let's put that green in. See how that's a little bit cooler? It's more blue. It's got more blue in it than this, so it's cooler. This is warmer because it's got more yellow. This is a warmer green because it has more yellow in it. This is a cooler green because it has more blue in it. So that's why when you hear artists say, this is a warm blue, and you're like, what the heck is a warm blue? That's why, because a little bit of yellow has been added to it. Also, this yellow orange is looking awful like this orange, so I'm going to go back over now that it's dry and put a glaze of yellow over it. So we'll do that too. Let's do that now, actually. Let's get some pure yellow. And I'm going to put a glaze again over this. Now that it's perfectly dry, you can do that. Okay, so I'm going to put another layer of yellow. So this is what you call a glaze, and a lot of artists work with a glaze technique to add up delicate layers of shading and detail by doing glazes. For example, I could do stripes of yellow, and then it would have a very delicate, subtle striped look, but it would be subtle. And that's why so many artists like to work with a lot of glazes. They paint it, let it dry, paint it, let it dry, with these tea consistency washes to slowly build up delicate, detailed layers for highly realistic work. So now we're going to do blue-green. So I'm just going to add blue to my already green mix, and then that will hopefully completely guarantee that this is a blue-green and not a green. Okay? All right, so this is an even cooler green, isn't it? Because it's got a lot more blue added to it. So we're going to go and add that to the blue-green spot on my primary wheel color. So this again is a tertiary color, right? Because it has three equal parts of something. It has 1 part yellow, 1 part green from here, plus 1 part of this in equal amounts to make a tertiary color. It just depends on how you look at the color. It's all relative. So this is, again, this is a warm blue because it has yellow added, and it is a cool green because it's a bluer green. So cool is when you add blues, warms are when you add reds and yellows. Now, I want to tell you guys again, one of the harder things about watercolor is controlling your paint, and a little bit of that happened here because this started drying and I kept adding yellow, a little bit wetter yellow in the middle, so that pushed out the green, and you can see how there's a bit of a hard line of green on the edges, and then it's more yellow in the middle, and you might not have wanted that, but that's because I was working in an area that was starting to dry too much, and it mixed nicely where the paper was still wet enough. But then on these drier edges, they're like, nope, we're not going to mix anymore. We're going to set. And moreover, the pigment kind of gets pushed into these drier areas and makes a very hard line along the very edge of your boundary. And what I do in a real painting situation is, this is so easy to fix. I just go in, let it completely dry like this, and then I'll spray this whole area, get everything a little moist, and then I'll just go in and scrub with a scrubber just a little bit and clean that up, and voila, poof, it's gone. Although you'll lose this hard edge, of course, this white area, that if that's important there, you cannot use a scrubber here because this is too small of a white area. But it is fixable in a real painting situation 90% of the time. All right, so we've got our blue-green, don't we? I think we're completely done with yellow, so I'm going to clean this yellow off my palette in this mixing area. I very rarely work in this way because I very rarely need such pure colors, as you can see over here. And that way I save paint. And my little tubes of paint, yes, they're $10 each, but they last me for a year because I don't throw any paint away. I just reactivate it, leave it on my palette, use this old paint that I was using maybe to mix a black or whatever, and I usually can reuse colors. I think we'll call it a day for this video. I wanted to cover the whole color wheel in this tutorial, but there was just too much good information to share with you guys, and I didn't want to edit any of that out because I made this video and a lot of upcoming videos that I'm going to be releasing with my totally new to watercolor beginners in mind. I want to give you guys a lot of good tips in general about how to paint with watercolor. So I think I'll call this a wrap, and in next week's video tutorial, we'll do the rest of the color wheel with a lot more really good tips for my absolute beginners. So I hope you find this format useful, and I hope I'm sharing a lot of information that is very helpful to all my beginners. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.